It was an eventful Wednesday for the Baltimore Ravens as Lamar Jackson clowned Bengals fans. The Ravens made a coaching shift. You had Roquan Smith talking spicy to the Commanders. Jaden Daniels had something to say about his Lamar Jackson comparisons. Plus, there's an update on the Davante Adams situation yet again. All that and more coming up next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here today and making Locked On Ravens both a part of your day and your first listen. Each and every single day are free and available for you, all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube and audio form wherever you get your shows for 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens, this crossover Thursday edition, is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. We're back with a crossover Thursday. David Harrison of Locked On Commanders will join us to break down the all of a sudden very exciting Ravens Commanders matchup. Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. But before we get into that, I did want to spend a few minutes talking about the very eventful Wednesday that the Ravens had yesterday. First of all, we did know after the game on Sunday, the Ravens obviously won 41-38 in overtime. Zay Flowers revealed a video of a Bengals fan coming up to Lamar Jackson, Zay, and that table, putting her arm around Lamar and, saying, oh, the Bengals are going to beat you, this, that, and the other. And so Lamar actually told the story for that yesterday and said that it was supposed to be a private thing, him, Eddie Jackson, Zay Flowers, and the owner of the place just kept letting people in. So, one fan was a Bengals fan, a Louisville fan, and she was nice according to Lamar, but then this other lady came in and, she was talking all that mess, and Lamar said he got mad about it. He's like, we know in the video he's pointing at her saying it's going to be her fault, and Lamar said that he wonders if, she's thinking about it and maybe she's seen it, right? The video, because he said maybe one of her grandsons showed it to her, which would be very funny. But then the quote that he said at the end, just be a fan next time. Just let us play. Let the guys do the talking. Y'all just be the fans. So we finally got the backstory behind that. And Lamar, he wasn't pulling any punches, but at the same time, he was trying to be as respectful as possible. He said he almost cursed in his answer, but he ended up taking it back. So, hey, you know what? Family-friendly show here on Locked On Ravens, family-friendly Lamar Jackson. But, certainly the story that everybody was waiting for with Lamar there. Also, the big story for the coaching staff was the Ravens actually made a shift in their coaching staff, adding back on Dean Pease. Obviously, Dean Pease was the coordinator in Baltimore for 6 seasons, won a Super Bowl with the team. He's going to be in a senior role, kind of working with Zach Orr. And I know the response to this for a lot of people was, oh, no, Zach Orr's not ready. He needs someone else in. Oh, no, this is terrible. I don't view it that way. Personally, I mean, look, Zach Orr is a young coordinator. He's called 5 games total in his career, ever. And it's these first 5 of the season for Baltimore. It doesn't hurt to have advice from a guy who's been there and done that. I think that it was very big of Zach Orr to allow that, to have someone to give him advice and, be open to that. So that was a big thing for this team, because obviously with Zach Orr being a younger coordinator and obviously one of the younger coaches in the league in general, younger coordinators, I think to have that balance of a veteran voice in his ear is going to be a really good thing. So I liked that personally, but we're going to see how it all unfolds. Then you have Roquan Smith talking a little spicy to Jaden Daniels, saying that he has not seen a defense like the Ravens before. Typical Roquan trash talk before the game. This is nothing that, we're not used to here with him being in Baltimore. But man, that Ravens defense does have some stuff to clean up. So hopefully at the end of the game, Jaden will be feeling the heat from that defense and what they did to him, but they have some areas to clean up before the game for sure. And then you have an update in the Davante Adams situation where, apparently the Ravens are out on him, and that report coming from The Athletic. So we saw the article yesterday, or we talked about the article on yesterday's show about, what's it going to be with him? Deshaun Reed of The Athletic saying that the Ravens, the Commanders, the Chiefs, and the Cowboys are out. The Jets, the Saints, the Steelers, and the Bills are all in on Davante Adams. And then Jaden Daniels ended up talking a bit about the Lamar Jackson comparisons, saying that he doesn't want to be compared to Lamar or anybody else. He just wants to be known as the next Jaden Daniels, not the next such and such, or the only Jaden Daniels in that case. And Zach Ertz said it was a disservice to both players to be comparing them like that. So busy Wednesday again for Baltimore, but the Ravens have a game on Sunday against the Washington Commanders, as we've been talking about. And so here to break that down is David Harrison of Locked On Commanders. Ton of great stuff we're going to get into here on this crossover Thursday. It's Lamar Jackson. It's Jaden Daniels. It is one heck of a matchup we are about to witness in week number 6. And David, I'm still so amazed at how quickly this has become a thing. And this is honestly because of the ascension of Jaden Daniels. Now we have two incredible quarterbacks going head to head. This is a matchup that so many people cannot wait to watch. And I'm certainly included in that list.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, this is a game that I'm definitely looking forward to. I did a little bit of a live hit with the local ABC station. And after the Commanders win over the Cleveland Browns, and I specified I'm staying away from every stranger. I'm staying away from everybody's kids. I'm taking nothing but vitamin C all week long. Like I am not missing this game. Come hell or high water. This is going to be something that I'm going to see. So, I don't know what the outcome is going to be quite honest with you. And when you have a rookie quarterback coming into a situation like this, there's obviously a lot of variables that are going to dictate what happens in this game. But bottom line is, this is just one of the games of the year, if not. And we'll see how it turns out, right? But there's a lot of people who are speculating this could end up being one of the games of the year. And for the Washington Commanders, if it's going to be the game of the year, it's going to have to be obviously because they're at least competitive, if not being able to win this game. And the ability to tackle is going to be paramount to the Washington Commanders staying competitive and potentially pulling off an upset win here. And that's something that, fortunately for them, they've actually been doing on defense fairly well as of late. Coach Dan Quinn said that, he and his staff tallied 4 missed tackles in the win over the Cleveland Browns, where they had something like 14 or 12 or something like that in the weeks prior. Not the Cardinals game, but leading up to Arizona, Cincinnati, and the Cleveland Browns game, this latest kind of really good run. They have a 4-game winning streak. The New York Giants game wasn't as sexy as the other ones were, but these last 3 games specifically, they've been playing a lot better, getting a lot more pressure. And that's really the key here. They've got to be able to contain Lamar Jackson, prevent him from taking over the game with his arm and his legs, but also Derrick Henry. I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know what it feels. I can't even compare a life experience to what it must feel like to be in front of Derrick Henry and have to take that kind of contact. But look, that's what you get paid for, right? If you're a defender, like you might be a small guy, you might be a big guy. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you get paid to go out there and stand in front of guys like Derrick Henry. You can't waffle on it. You can't. Oops, I tried to grab his ankle while I fell to the ground. You have to go out there and you got to put it on the line, because if not, he's going to run away with the game, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, and the Ravens are coming off of one of the games of the year already against Cincinnati, and now we got right back on the saddle for another one here against the Commanders. But you're exactly right, David. And when we look at this Washington team, I think it all does start with Jaden Daniels. And I love in this matchup, Jaden's a guy that is already seems like he's wise beyond his years and a guy that already understands the game so well. He's a low mistake player, and I love that quarterback matchup too. 2 really low mistake quarterbacks in Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson. But it's been a treat being able to watch him evolve over these first 5 weeks. Obviously, he doesn't have all the experience Lamar Jackson has, but he's already proving that for the long haul, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. So when you're going up against the Ravens defense like this, Dave, when you look at Jaden Daniels, what does he need to do in order to be able to get the better of them? Because Baltimore's been a little susceptible this season, especially in the pass game.
Yeah, honestly, he needs to do what he's been doing already all season long, and that is making smart decisions, quick decisions, timely decisions, right? Don't let pass rushes that don't necessarily get home all that well on their own have time to get home, because it's like finding an open receiver downfield. Any pass rusher, because of the rules and because of the lack of ability to hold and all that stuff, like pass rushers will eventually get home if you stand there in the pocket and allow them to do so. So what Jaden has been really good at, and something that really was on full display against the Cleveland Browns and Myles Garrett, was his ability to get rid of the ball quickly or get rid of himself in the pocket quickly, right? Scramble, extend plays, or get downfield. And where we're really starting to see this major development with Jaden Daniels from weeks 1 through week 5 is in week 1, essentially it was stand in the pocket and deliver the ball or run. There was really no extend plays, keep my eyes downfield, and stay alive as a passer. And the internal clock was incredibly accelerated. Then you get to week 2, you see it a little bit better. Week 3 is better. Week 4 is better. Week 5 is really where everything kind of comes to a head. And it all started off in that first drive. There's a deep ball pass to Terry McLaurin where Jaden Daniels escapes the pocket to the right side of the field, extends the play, keeps his eyes downfield, keeps his arm alive, fires the ball downfield. I mean, and if you watch that play, you just see how much arm strength this young man has in his shoulder, and gets that ball down there to Terry McLaurin beautifully. Now, where he faltered later on in that drive was the interception at the 1 yard line, where he's being a little bit greedy, trying to fit the ball to Zach Ertz and coverage that he already knew. As soon as he threw the ball, he knew he shouldn't have thrown that ball. Take the points, live with that field goal. Is going to be okay. And that's just the further maturation of a rookie quarterback, right? But he's a guy that has been very steady, very professional, and very smart with the football. And again, going back to Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns, look, Brandon Coleman, rookie left tackle, got the start, his first NFL start, and it's against Myles Garrett. He went up against him one-on-one only 4 times. The Washington Commanders knew they needed to give their rookie some help. But in those 4 reps, Brandon Coleman actually won 2 of those reps in my book. He lost 2 of those reps as well. But because Jaden Daniels was making timely decisions, even when Myles Garrett beat Brandon Coleman one-on-one, he didn't get any sack, didn't get a hit, didn't get a pressure all day long, didn't register a stat for only the second time in his career. That's what he needs to do against not just the Baltimore Ravens, but every defense that he faces from here on out.
Yeah, and the thing is, look, Jaden Daniels is Jaden Daniels. I know, David, one of the biggest storylines this week has been, oh, well, is Jaden Daniels the new Lamar Jackson? Is he a baby Lamar Jackson? And Jaden Daniels spoke to that on Wednesday, saying that he wants to be known as Jaden Daniels, not the next such and such, which I agree. Lamar is his own player. Jaden Daniels is his own player. And that's exactly what makes these 2 quarterbacks great. And Zach Ertz even got in on the action, saying that it's a disservice to both guys to compare one to another, because Lamar's been in the league for a while. He's a 2-time MVP, and Jaden Daniels has already shown so much, but still has a long, great career ahead of him. Now, on the defensive side of the ball for the Commanders, David, you mentioned a little bit, you got to tackle if you're Washington. You absolutely have to. And we've seen a defense that has struggled a little bit in certain areas this season, but obviously this team has been able, especially with Jaden, to overcome that. What are your biggest storylines on the defensive side of the ball? Because Baltimore's coming off of a 41-point performance on the offensive side of the ball, where they just put up points in a hurry.
Yeah, because not only do you have to be able to tackle well against the Baltimore Ravens, both from the running back perspective and the quarterback perspective, but you got to stay sticky in coverage, right? Because Lamar Jackson has honestly one of the longest, like getting ready to do my studies of the Baltimore Ravens. I'm looking at this. I'm like, okay, Lamar Jackson has only been sacked 5 times this year. He's got to be getting the ball out lightning quick. I go and I look at the next gen stats for the NFL, and he's at the second longest time to throw of any quarterback starting the National Football League. So I'm like, all right, well, his offensive line just has to be dominating people. And certainly his offensive line is doing a lot of good things, or he's got to be throwing outside the pocket a lot. 88% of his passes are still coming from inside the pocket. So the answer is his offensive line is doing a really great job. So I don't know that I expect the Washington Commanders to register a whole lot of pressure, a whole lot of sacks against Lamar Jackson. But the key is going to be keep him in the pocket, try to put as much pressure on him as you can, and then be sticky in coverage. Zay Flowers is going to make that very difficult, right? Isaiah Likely is going to make that very difficult. Mark Andrews is still nothing to sneeze at. Rashad Bateman, I think it still has some talent in him, obviously. So this secondary has been suspect at times. What's really helped this secondary look better over this 3-game winning streak, and even the 4 games total, even though Malik Neighbors had a pretty good day against them, is that pass rush getting home. If this pass rush can't do that against a very good Baltimore Ravens offensive line, the pressure turns up on those cornerbacks. And, Mike Sanderson has moved to the outside and looked better there than Emmanuel Forbes. Ben St. Juste has been the best guy on the field. Noah Igbenogany has been better in the slot than I think a lot of people expect him to be. But can they do it for 60 minutes and prevent Lamar Jackson from finding open targets? That's the question.
Yeah. Huge. It's a huge part of it, especially because there is a multi-layered step plan to getting Lamar Jackson on the ground. First, you have to win against this Baltimore offensive line. Then you have to be able to keep Lamar in the pocket if you do get home, because if you don't and he runs around on you, we obviously saw even if he fumbles a snap, he can still take that thing, stiff arm you, run around and chuck it up to a receiver who is in the end zone. So it's a multi-step plan, but that's what makes this game so exciting. 2 quarterbacks that have so much ability in so many different ways. But coming up in the second part of Locked On Ravens and Locked On Commanders on this crossover Thursday, we'll flip the field, talk about some matchup storylines to watch on the Ravens side of the ball. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty to get to on both Locked On Ravens and Locked On Commanders. First, the show is sponsored by Zbiotics. Zbiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. Is this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day? Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Zbiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. So here's how to use it. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LockedOnNFL. At checkout, Zbiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. And the show is brought to you by Gametime. I love going to live events, no matter what they are, sports, music, theater, comedy. I love going to them, and I love going to a couple more every single season to make new memories. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters up the fluff to show you all the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Plus, Gametime had a great 50% off Labor Day offer for Diamondbacks Dodgers last month. So Gametime is the place to try to find a deal. They have super deals and other tiers of deals that can get you great seats. You can also use a lot of their great features to secure seats. Gametime Picks, seat views, lowest price guarantee, Gametime ticket coverage. They have everything for you there. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Down the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Get create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spelled LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. We are back, our second segment of both Locked On Ravens and Locked On Commanders. Kevin Oestreicher, Locked On Ravens, chopping it up with David Harrison of Locked On Commanders ahead of this anticipated Week 6 matchup. David, not sure we were saying that when the schedule first came out, but this ascension of Jayden Daniels has made this absolutely must-watch TV to the point where you started to hear the primetime callers trying to get this game on primetime, but obviously CBS was not giving this thing up no matter what.
Hands off.
Was no shot. Yeah, I wouldn't either. If I was CBS, I'd say, get away from me. We're taking this, and we're getting all the benefits from it. But we talked about Washington and the keys and the matchups to look at. Now, flipping over to the Baltimore side of the ball. Actually, I'll start on defense because there was a big story yesterday, David, for this Ravens team. The Ravens defense has struggled a bit so far this season in a couple different areas. Run defense, they're still great, but the pass defense has been a struggle, miscommunications, poor timing, poor play calling. So the Ravens actually brought in Dean Pease, who was Baltimore's Super Bowl winning coordinator back in 2012, 2013. He's now in a senior advisor role, and he's going to be helping Zach Orr, who was their first-time defensive coordinator, first-time play caller at any level. And this has kind of made waves across the Baltimore side of things because it's like, whoa, does this mean Zach Orr wasn't doing a good enough job? Do they not trust him? What's going on here? I don't think it's any of the whole they don't trust him type deal, but I just think, hey, it's a young guy who's a young coordinator, has had an experience, and for a Baltimore team that has Super Bowl aspirations, any veteran advice you can get from a guy who's been there and done that is great, because we've seen it. Marlon Humphrey didn't practice on Wednesday with an ankle injury for this team. We're going to see what that progresses like throughout the week. He was seen with a boot on his foot leaving the locker room in Cincinnati. That'd be a big loss for a team that already is struggling. Marcus Williams has been one of the worst graded safeties this year. There were also rumblings, David, earlier in the offseason for Baltimore that John Harbaugh was going to get Jerry Rothberg, who was their special teams coordinator back in the day, in like a game management type role. And John Harbaugh's game management has been a little questioned over the course of the year this year. And honestly, in years past, that didn't come to fruition, but it seems like they're doing the same thing for Zach Orr. So the key for Baltimore's defense here is with Jayden Daniels doing what he's doing. Terry McLaurin has found it over these last couple of weeks. Obviously a bit of a struggle over the first two, just in terms of stats and getting those receiving yards. But hey, him and Jayden have established a connection. You have to be able to cover, even covering tight ends. We know that Zach Ertz is a steady veteran presence. You know, he might not go for 10 catches for 150 yards and a touchdown, but he can find the soft spots in your defense and use his veteran savvy to work back to Jayden if there's ever a problem. To me, the key for Baltimore's defense, I don't necessarily expect a huge day from Washington on the ground with their running backs, and we'll see how the Brian Robinson injury progresses over the week. But I think through the air, you have to stop Jaden Daniels because he has just been incredible. It's Washington's strength against what has been Baltimore's weakness so far.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? Like you usually look at a rookie quarterback competition, when a rookie quarterback is your competition, you kind of think, okay, make them lean on him to win the game, and you're probably going to be okay. But in this scenario, that actually potentially could be your downfall, And one of the things the Washington Commanders have done a really good job of is their no huddle offense is using the same personnel packages but using them in different alignments. So you might see 5-6 plays with, say, 13, well, not 13 personnel, but 11 personnel or 12 personnel. And when you see those 5 plays, you're going to see 5 different alignments at the same time. And at the end of the day, even if you end up with a scouted look that you've seen before or play that you've seen them run before, can you recognize it on the fly in real time? And can you communicate it to everybody in real time before they snap the ball? And that's something, Coach Harbaugh mentioned that on Wednesday to the media. He notices the Washington Commanders have done a really great job of creating space. And that is absolutely what this team is doing, is they're basically making you pick your poison and leaning on Jaden Daniels to make those smart decisions. Are you going to stack the box and or play man coverage and stick on their receivers and all those things? Well, if you do, they're probably going to run you out of space, and Jaden Daniels is going to gash you for some rushing yards. Or you can play zone and fill all kinds of space over the field and make sure you have a guy in every quadrant and do all that kind of stuff. Well, these receivers and these tight ends are really good at finding space, and Jaden is really good at anticipating where his guys are going to be and delivering the ball timely and accurately. And that's really what has been frustrating a lot of defenses. I actually just wrote this for Commander Game Day on Sports Illustrated, where every other defense has got to face this Washington Commanders offense right now is hoping, like, hey, you're the Ravens. You're supposed to be Super Bowl contenders. You have a very strong defensive identity over the years. I know that the passing defense especially has struggled this year, but everybody's kind of looking like, hey, you're the Ravens. Like if the Bears are going to figure it out, the Panthers are going to figure it out, the Eagles, the Cowboys are going to figure it out. They want to look at the Ravens and say, what did you do? So if they can't figure it out, and if they let the Washington Commanders get loose to score 30-plus points for the 3rd straight game this season, that could be a problem. That could be a problem for the Baltimore Ravens, and that's certainly the key to the Washington Commanders being able to potentially get an upset here.
Yeah, Washington's passing offense is 4th in terms of net yards per attempt this season, so obviously they are throwing the ball, getting big plays and timely first downs as well to be able to extend drives and make sure that defenses have to either stay on the field and tire themselves out, or gives the opportunity for the Washington defense to rest, which I think is really important, at least in this game, David, because when you talk about this Washington defense right now, again, they're a middling pass defense in terms of net yards per attempts. They're at 17th there. But where I'm really looking at is the run defense. They're second to last in terms of net yards per attempt given up. We know this Baltimore, it shocked me when I heard the stat for the first time. But this Baltimore rushing offense, David, is on pace to break their 2019 totals, which was already a historic unit. And obviously, a lot of that has to do with the fact that this team did bring in Derrick Henry, a 30-year-old Derrick Henry. He's out there looking like 26-year-old Derrick Henry. And that's been one of the really key parts of this Ravens offense. I think I don't even know. It's one thing watching him for Tennessee for all those years, but it's another thing when he comes over to your side and it's like, whoa, this is a whole different thing, because with Lamar and Derrick Henry, Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins played really well for Baltimore. But it's just the gravity that Derrick Henry has, and you pair that with the gravity Lamar has, you always kind of leaned Lamar's way if you were a defense, to where we have to be able to stop Lamar. We're going to put more stock into that as opposed to a Gus or JK. With Derrick Henry, it's like, man, we don't know where the heck to go. And that's all this misdirection they've used, zone reads they've used. They've worked play action off of it. And that's the thing that I love with this offense, is they're now finding identities that they didn't even have when Gus and JK were there. So my big thing, and we'll talk about this a little bit in the final part of the show too, but the biggest story for the Ravens offensively is just continue what you're doing and make this Commanders defense guess. Don't let them take away a part of your offense. Keep attacking, keep pushing, and foot on the gas for 60 minutes. And I think that'll do a lot of good things for this Ravens team, especially the way Lamar's playing so far this year.
Yeah, look, a lot of people look at Derrick Henry and they think, man, big bruising, strong running back, just going to run dudes over. And a lot of that gets associated with A-gap, B-gap runs. And that's certainly there. That's certainly part of his game. But Coach Quinn pointed out to us on Wednesday as well, like, he's got a great stiff arm, which is part of the power game, right? But it keeps guys away from him. And he's got a really great jab step as well. And I was surprised a little bit in my film study to learn that most of Derrick Henry's explosive runs have come on the perimeter. Like, they're not coming through the A-gap, B-gaps. They're coming on the edge. And when defenses are trying to clog the middle of those lanes, and they're getting washed up in amongst themselves and amongst the Ravens blocking scheme. That's where Derrick Henry is taking advantage of some of this space, but also taking advantage of some of these smaller DBs that, quite frankly, some of them look scared to try to tackle Derrick Henry. Looking at you, Diggs in Dallas. But yeah, man, it's a tough matchup for sure. And the Washington Commanders have their definitely have a tall hill to climb this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing that the Ravens love to do is love to get their blockers out into space. If you're in this Ravens offense, if you're playing on that line, you have to be able to pull out, get to your guy, and seal off that edge. And the thing that the Ravens are doing really well this season, particularly their tight end group, it's been a big story, David. Mark Andrews hasn't had the receiving year that everybody's been accustomed to, but he is graded out as one of the best blockers in the league in his position over the course of these first 5 weeks. He's putting his head down, getting dirty, and doing his thing. Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kohler are doing the same thing. So getting those blockers into space on the perimeter, the wide receivers are blocking. So it is truly an entire unit effort to get Derrick Henry these yards on the ground. And when Lamar Jackson runs it, same thing. It's an entire unit effort. So I think for Washington, it has to be all the guys on the field, not just the guys up front, not just the front seven, but everybody has to be in on that if they want a chance to win this game. Coming up with the final part of the show, David and I will talk through what the Commanders and the Ravens have to do in order to win this game. A big Week 6 matchup on the horizon between Baltimore and Washington. Stay tuned. Still so much to dive into on this crossover Thursday of both Locked On Ravens and Locked On Commanders. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, we start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bets for this Ravens and Commanders game. The Ravens open up as 6.5-point favorites. So if you like the favorites in the Ravens or the underdogs in the Commanders, be sure to pick your side over on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. We are back with Locked On Ravens and Locked On Commanders with David Harrison of Locked On Commanders. I am Kevin Ostreicher of Locked On Ravens. Just a reminder here that this crossover Thursday edition of both Locked On Ravens and Locked On Commanders is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. And be sure to subscribe to both Locked On Ravens and Locked On Commanders on YouTube and follow along wherever you get your favorite podcast. Now, David, there are so many things that have to go right for any NFL team to win a game, especially in a high-powered shootout, which I feel like is the prediction right now. A lot of people are expecting a lot of points and maybe not so much defense in this game. But from the Commanders side of things, what are 3 things they have to do in order to pull out this victory?
Oh, man, I think first and foremost, you got to play disciplined defensive aggression, right? You want to be aggressive. Joe Witt Jr., Dan Quinn, they want an aggressive defense. So you got to be disciplined in that aggression while you're trying to do that. Sticky coverage, we already kind of talked about it a little bit, but I think 2 times on defense, defensive discipline aggression, sticky coverage, and then on offense, exploit the middle of that Baltimore Ravens defense. Run the ball at least 17, 18 times. Keep them honest. Make sure the Baltimore Ravens understand you might have a really good run defense, but you got to use that thing because that's going to help you exploit the middle of that coverage. And that is where I think the Washington Commanders can make their money the most and help them try to get an upset win. Now, if Humphrey is out, changes things a little bit. Maybe you target the perimeter a little bit more, but still want to use that middle of the defense if you can.
And that to me is a really big one because at this point with this Ravens defense, they've had all sorts of issues on that side of the ball. And in the secondary, it's part of, I mentioned Marcus Williams, Brandon Stevens, who had a great year for them last year. One of his fatal flaws is he doesn't turn his head around on the ball. So he had a great pass breakup on T. Higgins. He had no idea the ball was coming. He just kind of stuck his hand up and got lucky with it. The ball kind of jots out there. So if Jaden is able to kind of confuse this Ravens defense a little bit, that's one area that I really, really think Washington could exploit. But here's the other part of this, David. Washington or any other team with a rookie quarterback, second-year quarterback, it's been tough if they've seen this Ravens defense for the first time for them to get momentum. Baltimore, the stat is 15-2, I believe it is, against rookie quarterbacks at home under John Harbaugh. Yeah. So this defense is complex despite whoever it is, Don Martindale, Dean Pease, Mike McDonald, Zach Orr. There's always a level of complexity. So when I'm thinking about the Ravens, I'm like, well, first of all, you got to make Jaden Daniels uncomfortable confuse Jaden Daniels, get him out of his element, and make him second guess himself on some of those throws. I think that's a big one. I also think establishing the run early is going to be really key for this team because, again, you want to be able to use your offense to its potential. Fast start kind of goes in there. And I've been saying it every week because I think now we have to say it here in Baltimore, 60 minutes of football. This game is not 3 quarters long. We know the narrative around Baltimore. And honestly, last week they flipped it on its head against Cincinnati. But those 3 things to me for Baltimore are the keys.
Yeah, I think that first one is going to be really challenging, right? And I think that's kind of the trick here is who is going to be the first one to figure out how to make Jaden Daniels uncomfortable, right? Because the thing about trying to make Jaden Daniels second guess himself is he doesn't second guess himself. Like that's just kind of part of his makeup is he believes his eyes. He sees what he sees. If he sees an opening, he goes for it. If he doesn't see an opening, he doesn't go for it and he goes for a different opening, right? He doesn't sit there and try to wait and figure it out. Well, maybe that's going to come open, or maybe that's going to do this, or maybe that's going to do that. He doesn't play those games. He's very matter of fact about it. And the analogy that I've used about him, Commanders fans are going to get sick of me using these analogies, but I keep using them on Crossover Thursdays because that's what Ravens fans haven't heard it yet. Is if his house was on fire, he would gather all of his collectibles, all the things that he thinks are valuable in his home, and he would just stroll out the front door like nothing was happening because that dude has no panic in him. He's got no hurry in him. Now, again, week 1 did see that clock accelerated, but it wasn't a panic thing. It was just basically a rookie quarterback getting used to the speed of the NFL game, going up against a very aggressive defensive coordinator in Todd Bowles. I'm actually very curious to see if the Ravens blitz more. I think it's a little bit of reputation over the years, but I actually expected when I started diving into this matchup that the Ravens were going to be one of the more blitzing teams in the league, but that's actually not the case. They like to bring 4 rushers a lot. They like to mix it up by having 2 down linemen, 3 down linemen, and then bring an extra guy who's standing up from somewhere else or an extra 2 guys from somewhere else. And that's definitely a way to get creative with it. But I'm curious to see if maybe they blitz a little bit more in this game than they have in other games. I think the blitz rate against Patrick Mahomes in week 1 was a little bit higher than the blitz rate all season long. So that could be an indication that might be what they're going to do because, again, Jaden's the kind of guy, if you let him sit back there, he's either going to rip it or he's going to run away from you. So if you don't put some pressure on him and you let him sit back there and just pick and choose what he wants to do, he's going to do it all day long. He's gonna gladly take anything that you can give him. So it's gonna be an interesting chess match to see if Jaden forces the Ravens to do some things that maybe they haven't been doing this year.
Yeah, and I think that I would probably anticipate the Ravens blitzing a bit more just to see if they can rattle Jaden early and see if that can carry over for the rest of the game. But the thing is, if they aren't successful and if Jaden is either getting the ball out quickly, if he's extending plays, scrambling out of there, and especially using the short passing game, that could hurt the Ravens. But I would expect them to try some different things because they love to, again, blitz their DBs off the edge. They love to confuse in terms of sending guys to the line and then not bringing everybody. But you're right. I think the Don Martindale Ravens, they were number 1 in blitz percentage, number 1 in blitz everything. But ever since he left, they've kind of scaled back that blitzing, and it's been less of a blitzing effort and more of calculated blitzing as opposed to just live by the blitz, die by the blitz mentality, which certainly was there over those Don Martindale years. Really appreciate David for the Commanders' insight. I'm expecting an awesome game. I think a lot of fireworks, and who knows, maybe the Ravens defense could get back on track a little bit based off of those rookie quarterback numbers. But Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, a heck of a quarterback matchup. That's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Coming up tomorrow, we'll be rounding out the week with more Ravens content and coverage. So be sure to stay tuned for that. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.